president of the Onslow Residents Community Association. ORCA is putting on this meeting, and we're very pleased to see how many people have come to it. On Saturday morning at 10 o'clock till 2 p.m. in the lounge there'll be a drop-in if you want to come and find out more information. And in 2 weeks' time, on the 30th of November, we will hold another one of these meetings. Okay, I would just like to take the opportunity to welcome Greg O'Connor here, our local MP, and I'm going to welcome Diane Calvert, who's just walking in the door as we speak. Okay. So, Diane, what would you like to do? I was going to invite you to speak first if you would like to, and Greg to say a few words if he wants to. And then I will give you an overview of what I think are 3 significant issues with the draft plan that we need to discuss and have a view about this evening. But otherwise, we're going to be, we're aiming to inform you about what's significant, listen to what you have to say, empower you to make a submission, and we're listening to you so that you will inform the submission that ORCA expects to make. So now we know the officials of the council weren't going to come this evening. And we did invite the mayor and all our ward councillors, but bear in mind we organised this at such a rush that might be why they're not here this time. Maybe they'll come in 2 weeks. We'll leave it to them. Felicity, do you want to say something? For the purposes, I want to let you know that with the help of our colleagues in Johnsonville Community Association, of which Tony is chair, president, and Darren here has come, and we are going to put the formal part of this meeting on YouTube on the Johnsonville Community Association website. Now, I have suggested that we are not going to do that when you come forward to have your say, because I don't want to suppress discussion in this meeting because it might be on the internet. But Diane and I are quite happy for our part, and maybe Greg will be as well, just for the few words that we're going to say, that will be recorded. The slides I will use will go up on our website. But without more ado, I'll invite Diane first, followed by Greg. Do you want to say something? Diane first.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, ORCA, for organising this. I think one of the things is this is probably one of the most critical aspects coming to you all at this time, and that's around the district plan. And you will recall that this has been a long process over the last couple of years. There was the council came out about 2 or 3 years ago asking 4 questions and trying to get a sense of how the people of Wellington wanted to see the city develop in the future. And that informed what was called a draft spatial plan. And some of you will have been aware of that. I know a lot of people weren't. They didn't really understand that unless they saw something on social media. And I know we had a reasonable turnout here, but that was a lot down to the local residents association actually sending notices out about various meetings. And so from the spatial plan, we now have that's informed the district plan. And I think the big issue for this area has been a couple of things. First up, the government announced a national policy statement last year, and it had certain requirements in it. And one of them was that anywhere that was had a railway line with rapid transit stops would actually then have enabled 6-story buildings or more around it. And thanks to Lawrence, we know that could be 10 stories. And so for me personally, I think that just rips out the heart of the Onslow suburbs. So Johnsonville, Khandallah, and Khandallah, Naya and Crofton Downs. And I don't think that was really the intention, the government's intention. I mean, this was really based up in Auckland, where they've got the stops between main suburban centres. Our stops were never designed that way. It's not a main line, it's a branch line. So I think when I talk to people around this area, they are really surprised of the way the council has interpreted the NPS, or the National Policy Statement. So I think that's a key matter. The other matter is that they designated Khandallah, our village, as, rather than a neighbourhood centre, as a local centre, which is one step down from a large metropolitan centre, which is Johnsonville. And it puts it on par with Newtown, Karori and Tawa. And I actually think this is more a neighbourhood centre rather than a local centre. And then the third point is, and I know there's a few people here, people have land with significant natural areas, a designation, which actually restricts property rights on those properties. And it would be great if we were offering compensation for that, for taking away people's rights, but there's no offer of any compensation as part of that. And I know there's a lot more broader issues. So for me, they're probably the three key issues in this area. I know from government they're also, and I'm sure Greg can talk about this, they're mandating medium density housing, 3 stories, up to 3 units. I'm not going to, you'll have your own views about that. But for me, that's not as important as what could happen if the stops along the Johnsonville line are designated as rapid transit stops. We will completely change these suburbs. But I think we all want to see more housing, and I believe that we can see more housing, but we have to work together, and we all know the areas where there could be more housing. We know there'll be normal intensification and infill, and the question is, do we really need to destroy these suburbs to enable 6 stories when other areas just don't get any intensification? And we need to be fair around the whole city. So that's probably the key points that I wanted to say. But just encourage everyone. I know you think the council doesn't listen, and I have to agree with you, sometimes it doesn't, but please don't give up. So please have your say.
Thank you, Diane. Great.
Here, Lawrence, and thank you, everyone. I'm here to listen primarily, but just before I do sit back down, there's quite a bit happening. In fact, just before I came tonight, I spoke to the Environment Select Committee and the Minister's Advisor just to try and put everything that's happening here some perspective around it. I might like to say I'm also a Khandallah resident, having just moved into the area and bought here, so I do have a personal interest in making sure that Khandallah is done properly, if you like to put it that way. So you've got the SNAs, the last thing Diane mentioned was the SNAs. Now, just in relation, nothing has changed in relation to the SNAs, can I say, from a central government point of view. They come out of the RMA, which is 30 years old. So there's been no change to that at all. What the RMA does is requires councils to protect their significant natural areas. So that's the basis on which the council have now designated those SNAs. So essentially nothing's changed there. It's basically the council are doing what many councils haven't done, some have done. So it's progression there. The second thing Diane mentioned was about the 3-storey housing. Now that has been another change. There's a bill going through at the moment. In fact, it's not too late. The submissions on that close at midnight tonight. That's the one where there's been a joint agreement between National and Labor, whereby the RMA will be amended to allow for sections over a certain size to have 3-storey buildings, 3 buildings on them without a resource consent being required. Now the third part about it is again sort of echoing Diane there, is the National Policy Statement. And that is the one that really some of you will be hearing about tonight. I know it's a few different issues, so I just sort of put them in perspective. That is about more housing. That is about where, as you're aware, nationally we are in an extreme housing crisis. Simply, it's not a shortage of land, it's a shortage of ability to do anything with land that is there. There are two types of building sections: brownfields development and everything around Khandallah, in particular, will be brownfields. As you go north through to Lincolnshire Farm, through to Tooting Park, up in Stebbings Valley, etc., of course, that is all greenfields, and that's going to be a slightly different ruling again. So essentially, I would imagine the issues that come up here tonight are going to be around that brownfields. That is about saying that the councils must allow plans for over 6 stories that come within the local plan, the district plan. If you've read the district plan, there will still have to be, you still have to come within what is approved locally at the same time. And again, that's going to be determined by how close you are to public transport. A la Victoria. If you go to Victoria, you'll see that's the city that's done it where the nearer you are to a train line, essentially, the more intense the housing is, the more intense the residential is, and then as you go away, the further you go away, the more you need to use private cars, etc., the less the density. So essentially that's the rule there based on what you see, particularly in Melbourne. So that's just to give some, sorry we're not all long, I think it's just important to understand that those 3 are quite separate issues, but unfortunately, like many other things, I won't even go near 3 waters, but they're all coming together sort of at one time, all about one thing, to blame, I suppose, the platform for the future, for our future generations.
Thank you, Greg. We appreciate you being here and speaking. You can contact Greg at his email address at Parliament, greg.o'connor@parliament.nz, isn't it? .gov.nz, and Diane Calvert at Wellington City Council. Okay, now if you've got questions of them, then feel free to come forward with those when we very quickly get to listening to you. Would that be all right? Yes, please. Yes, that would be really good. Diane's brought some maps so you can visualise the zoning and the issues that we'll be talking about tonight. I haven't attempted to put those on the screen because you wouldn't be able to make out anything, so if you don't mind, that would be good.
So look, I've got 2 maps. There's one of Khandallah, because I wasn't sure who'd be coming here, one of Khandallah and one of Khandallah, Nye and Crofton Downs. And on them is marked the significant natural areas and also the medium density on the Khandallah one. You can see the heights that are permissible in the various zoning areas. So that might be interesting. So I will.
If you give them that to the front, they can be passed back.
So that's one. And this is the.
All right, that's really good. Look, thank you very much for coming once again. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what I think key issues are. I'm not going to get into maths. I'm not going to get into setbacks and inclined planes and stuff like that in this meeting, okay? Although you're very welcome to ask any question you want. Ian, who's just been voted onto our committee at the back there, he's going to take any notes of any questions and we'll try and make sure they come through. I want to talk about 3 things. What does the plan say about higher density? What does it say about biodiversity? And how is it supported with essential services? Because for me, these are the strategic issues, okay? But just to, before I get to those 3, you'll be amazed to know that this plan doesn't have all the marketing stuff at the front about vibrancy and why are we having a district plan, which is actually quite refreshing. But I perceive there are 3 reasons we need a new district plan. One is we do need to provide more dwellings in our city. Now, what this district plan has decided is that these should be closer to the city, so carbon emissions are reduced in our climate emergency that the council has declared. Okay. Secondly, I believe it's there to provide a cityscape that promotes well-being. They would be the 6 things at the front of the spatial plan that we would expect to find from any district plan, right? And also, it's going to safeguard biodiversity. All right. Now, the question I have for this meeting is: are these goals being met by the district plan? Okay, we can ask ourselves that question. So now 3 things. More dwellings. So first of all, we're going to get more dwellings anyway because Khandallah is always growing. There is infill, there's always an opportunity to put new properties down. We get resource consents for more than 2 dwellings per section and for higher buildings already. But the next thing is that the government's MDRS that Greg told us about is going to build these 3 by 3, that is 3-storey, 3 buildings on a section, where in the general residential area and the old district plan, by permit, you could only have 2 buildings of 2 stories on a section. Now, we need to understand that those proposals have come too late for the district plan. There's nothing in the district plan about these, okay? So they will have to be amended to include these, and the council's got a bunch more work to do to work out what the implications are, but they're not going to say anything because it's still in Parliament. Its submission's closed tonight. Secondly, the railway is declared to be a rapid transit system. Now, there are rapid transit systems and there are rapid transit systems. Okay? So, for transport purposes, our Heritage Branch railway line has been considered to be right up there in terms of public transport. Right? But for the NPSUD, a rapid transit system is another thing altogether, and it has to meet lots of criteria about having the capacity, having the speed, having the frequency, and the dependability that you can actually rely on densifying around it. Okay. I'll say more about that in a minute. The local centre, we've been designated, as Diane said, a local centre and not a neighbourhood centre. So I've asked the council actually, Diane, what does that mean? And I think if we didn't have a rapid transit system, it would mean we would get higher density around the local centre than you get around the neighbourhood centre, right? So in Karori, Karori is almost exclusively general residential, and currently in the plan that's 2 stories, 2 houses, 2 dwellings per section by permit. Okay. In Khandallah we have 21 metres within 10 minutes walking distance of our railway stations, and you will see that on this map. And that's called a maximum height, but it's only a maximum permitted height. It's not a maximum height at all. There is no maximum height. And if you follow the design guides, you can build 25% higher than that, up to 8 stories practically, right? And if you meet some of the outcomes the council's working by shoving in a bit of play space, designating some of the flats to be for social housing, I could look at it's called affordable here as well, then you can go 50% higher, and that's where we get the threat of 10-storey developments. But that's by resource consent, it's not by permit. And multiple dwellings of more than 3 houses, 3 or more houses require resource consent anyway. I'm just trying to think what I want to say about the railway. We believe it does not have the capacity. Okay, we've worked, actually, Tony and I have worked with other council officials who produced a report for councillors, so they're looking into that. But we believe that if you take the pre-COVID patronage levels for the line and you calculate growth from the district plan over the period, and if you allow for some mode shift, which is people not no longer driving in but switching to public transport, then you will, the line just doesn't have a capacity. It's beyond crush capacity at the peak time in the morning. And Tony's nodding his head, I think I've got that right. Crush capacity is what they do in Japan. You know? They push you in before they close the doors. That's why it's called crush capacity. Okay, get on with it, Horace. Biodiversity protection. What I want to ask you is, more dwellings, yes? Well, how many and what kind of dwellings do you think we should be putting up in Khandallah? Right, let's have a discussion about that. Biodiversity protection. Onslow has huge tracts of biodiversity. If you look at those maps that we just handed out, the green with a purple hash over it are the reserves. They're almost all designated as significant natural areas, that is, where the flora and fauna, the biodiversity needs to be protected, and they come under the protection of the SMA protections. You may, if you look very carefully, see a few private areas where the yellow and orange is overlaid by the purple hashing, and they are significant natural areas on private property. So where private owners have been diligent, they're being rewarded with protection orders that strip their property rights.
Just a correction here.
Yes.
It's green and pink as well.
Sorry?
The green and pink about natural reserves.
Oh, are they? Okay, thank you. Even
pink
more than I
is
thought.
more obvious.
Thank you very much. The green and the pink are both natural words. So, to me, as a personal statement, it appears unnecessary, inconsistent, because if we look in Broadmeadows, the properties in the south have got SNAs on private land, but the ones that border the reserves to the north don't have any encroachment onto their land. And I asked the question, where's the evidence? And I think the reality, from a council point of view, the answer is we're still talking to property owners to establish whether that's correct.
To establish what, sorry?
Whether there is actually biodiversity on your property.
Well, what that is.
Thank you. So I'm expecting quite a lot of contribution on that. What I think is that, well, the question I have for the meeting is, how do we protect our environment? Okay? How do we protect our environment? Right, now, essential services. We can't grow our people and our homes without growing the services that support them. Okay? And in particular, that means water. That is both fresh water, wastewater, and stormwater. And transport. There's no point in growing all the population if we just create more carbon, right? Education, social and safe, and even safety, such as police and fire, and recreation space. Okay, so if I look at these three things, then as I said already, the railway doesn't have the capacity, none is planned, and I suggest that in the priority of where to spend the money on the rapid transit services around the region, only 10% of the people in the region live along the Johnsonville railway line, 90% live somewhere else around the other transport areas. The other thing is that when the proposed spatial plan came out, not the one the council signed off eventually, but the one that was proposed to the council, the officials said, look, we can't do all the water straight away, and we don't, and in that they were saying they don't see the Onslow area as getting enough capacity for at least 10 years. Okay. Now my question would be, why are we going to open the floodgates for development immediately if that is the case? And so I'm asking the council, and I'm expecting some replies on this, look, how are you going to sync up the 10-year plan budget and the affordability of providing these essential services with the growth that you're letting loose in the district plan? Okay. The schools are full and our support services are stretched. So the question is, are these essential services coming in time to provide for the growth? Okay. So I'd like to finish with a few flashbacks to last year. Why do we live in Khandallah? And I think it's got a lot to do with amenity. And this is a 1997 report to Parliament that identify what the important things are for healthy well-being. Okay, because it's not just living in a box; it's the environment in which you live. So, if these things are grabbing your attention, come forward and we'll do some. You can have your say. Please try and keep it to a minute, right? Because we want to give as many people as possible. This isn't a chance for a party political broadcast for the next elections. But here's how you can make a submission. Send an email to the team. They want you to use their form. Well, it's even briefer than the spatial plan form. So you can't read it here, but on our website will be the link they want you to use. You can just send an ordinary email with your points. Okay. You can print and complete that form and free post it like was on here. The trouble is it doesn't have a free post back, Diane. Can we get a free post form? Can we ask the council please for a free post form as we had for the spatial plan? And finally, you can use the online submission process. You know, it's that venture into wonderland where you get one question at a time, you don't quite know where this journey of answering questions is taking you. Okay. Look, here's a picture of Agra Crescent. Anybody here live in Agra? This is what it would look like with a 4-storey medium density building replacing one of those houses. That's only 4 stories. Here's a bit further along Agra Crescent at the bottom of Ganges Road. This is what it would look like with a 6-storey building sprouting up like a mushroom. So what would it look like with a 10-storey building? Okay. Thank you very much for your attention. Leave us your email address somewhere if you'd like more, or better still, email us at this address. onslowcommunity.org.nz is where you'll find all our information.
Lawrence, the submission forms are still available, Diane, from the public library?
I haven't seen what's in the public library, no. I think that the council has become much more online. If you go online, and I haven't shown you this, but you can find it on our website, how to look at the spatial plan. Then you've got 2 choices. One is called map, okay? And that takes you to a map which looks like these maps here. Now you can actually type your address in there, if you're interested in your own property, and it will come back and tell you everything the district plan has to say about your property. Okay. The other one is full spatial plan. It's not actually the full spatial plan. You have to work your way through and expand all the contents pages, sections one by one. But that gives you the written form of the district plan. Okay. All right, I'm going to shut up. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm going to invite Barbara and anyone else who wants to come forward and ask a question. If you would like to give us your name, that would be really great. Please keep it short, and if you want to make a little statement first, then we want to now hear what the community's got to say. As Greg said, he's come here to listen.